In the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council's central chamber, Earth's representatives stood with their heads held high, despite the whispers and barely concealed smirks from the alien delegates around them. This was humanity's third attempt to join the council, and the tension in the room could be cut with a knife. The Grand Speaker, a tall being with silvery skin, looked down from the floating platform with what could only be described as bored amusement. "We have reviewed Earth's petition for membership." The speaker's voice boomed through the chamber. "And once again, we find your civilization lacking." Admiral Tom Parker, Earth's chief representative, clenched his fists but maintained his diplomatic composure. Next to him, his colleague James Wilson, head of Earth's Space Development Program, shifted uncomfortably. "With all due respect," Parker began, "Earth has met every requirement except the most crucial one," interrupted a blue-skinned council member. "Your fastest ships are pathetically slow. How can you expect to contribute to galactic society when you can barely crawl through space?" The chamber filled with patronizing laughter. It was true. Earth's best ships could only achieve 150 times the speed of light, while the Council's standard was 750 times light speed. The difference was staggering. Back on Earth, in the bustling Space Development Center in Houston, a young engineer named Jack Thompson watched the transmission with growing anger. Around him, other engineers and scientists hung their heads in disappointment. This was their third rejection in 10 years, and it stung just as much as the first. "This is nonsense," Jack muttered, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. His desk was covered in complex calculations and design sketches. For months, he had been working on something revolutionary, but nobody had taken him seriously. "Did you say something?" asked Dr. Robert Miller, his mentor and the facility's head of research. The older man had noticed Jack's increasing frustration over the past few weeks. Jack turned to face him, his eyes bright with determination. "We're approaching this all wrong," he said, pulling up his latest designs on the screen. "Everyone's trying to improve the current drive systems, but what if we completely change the game?" Dr. Miller leaned in, his eyebrows rising as he studied Jack's calculations. "Quantum surge technology. Jack, this is highly theoretical. The energy requirements alone would be possible with our new fusion reactors," Jack interrupted, bringing up more data. "Look, we've been trying to copy their technology, but what if our primitive understanding of quantum mechanics could actually give us an advantage? They don't look at quantum tunneling the same way we do." The older scientist stroked his chin thoughtfully. "The Council would say this is impossible. Their scientists have studied quantum mechanics for thousands of years longer than we have." "Maybe that's exactly why they can't see it," Jack replied, his voice growing excited. "They're too set in their ways. We're looking at this with fresh eyes." As they discussed the possibilities, the council transmission continued in the background. The Grand Speaker was now listing all the ways humanity needed to evolve before they could be considered for membership. Jack stood up suddenly, gathering his materials. "I'm going to present this to the board. Today. Right now." "They'll never approve it," Dr. Miller warned. "It's too radical, too different from conventional designs." "Then we'll make them approve it," Jack said firmly. "We've spent too long trying to catch up to their technology. It's time we took our own path." As Jack walked out of the lab, Dr. Miller watched him go with a mixture of concern and pride. He'd known Jack since he was a fresh graduate, and he'd never seen him so determined. The rejection by the Galactic Council would prove to be a turning point in human history, though nobody knew it yet. In trying to keep humanity in their place, they had inadvertently sparked something that would change the face of space travel forever. And it all started with a young engineer who dared to think differently, on a day when humanity was reminded once again of their supposed limitations. 3 weeks after the Council's rejection, Jack Thompson stood before Earth's Space Development Board. His hands were steady as he projected his designs onto the large screen behind him. The room was packed with the most brilliant minds on Earth, and every single one of them looked skeptical. "A quantum surge drive," Jack began, pointing to his diagrams. "Instead of pushing against space like current drives, we create a quantum tunnel through it." "Impossible," said one of the board members, Dr. Andrews, shaking his head. "The energy requirements would tear any ship apart." Dr. Miller, sitting in the front row, spoke up. "That's where you're wrong, Thomas. Look at his containment field design." Jack nodded gratefully to his mentor and brought up the next slide. "Traditional thinking says we need massive energy to create a stable quantum tunnel. But what if we don't create the tunnel at all? What if we find ones that already exist?" The room grew quiet. Jack continued, his confidence growing. "Space is full of naturally occurring quantum pathways. We just haven't been able to see them before. But with these sensors," he pulled up another diagram, "we can detect them, and more importantly, we can use them." The presentation went on for 2 hours. By the end, even the harshest critics were leaning forward in their seats. The math was solid. The theory was revolutionary, and most importantly, it was distinctly human in its approach. News of the proposal reached the Galactic Council within days. Their response was swift and dismissive. "Humans show continued ignorance of basic physics," read the Galactic news headlines. The Council's chief scientist, a being known only as the High Theorist, released a statement calling the human approach dangerously misguided and proof of their species' scientific immaturity. But for the first time, Earth didn't care what the Council thought. In a secure laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Jack and Dr. Miller worked tirelessly. They had been given a small team, a modest budget, and 6 months to prove their concept. "The Council's wrong about quantum space," Jack said one night, as they reviewed their latest test results. "They think it's like a smooth ocean, but it's more like a river system, full of currents and connections." Dr. Miller nodded, studying the data on his screen. "The real question is, can we navigate these currents without getting lost in them?" Their first breakthrough came 4 months in. During a small-scale test, they successfully transported a probe through a quantum pathway. The distance was tiny, just a few meters, but the implications were enormous. "Look at the speed readings," Jack said excitedly, pointing to the data. The probe didn't just move through space, it skipped over it entirely. No acceleration, no deceleration. It was just there. The board doubled their funding the next day. But with success came attention. The Council's observers arrived unannounced, demanding to inspect the facility. They were politely but firmly turned away, which only increased their suspicion. "They're afraid," Dr. Miller observed, watching the alien ships depart. "For the first time in centuries, someone's approaching faster than light travel from a completely new direction." Jack barely heard him. He was too focused on the latest simulation results. The numbers were better than he'd dared hope. According to their calculations, a properly equipped ship wouldn't just match the Council's speed of 750 times light speed. It could potentially exceed it. "We need to think bigger," Jack announced, turning to his mentor. "We're not just building a new engine. We're rewriting the rules of space travel." Dr. Miller looked at the ambitious young engineer, seeing the same fire that had driven humanity to reach the stars in the first place. "The Council won't like that," he said with a small smile. "Good," Jack replied, turning back to his work. "Maybe it's time they learned that humans don't just follow rules. We break them and make better ones." The quantum surge drive was no longer just a theory. It was becoming reality. And with it, humanity's place in the galaxy was about to change forever. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter became humanity's greatest secret shipyard. Hidden within a hollowed-out asteroid named Vesta, Project Lightning Strike took shape. The experimental ship, which Jack named Thunderchild, grew piece by piece in the zero-gravity construction bay. "We've got another problem with the quantum sensors," reported Pete, the lead technician. He pointed to a smoking circuit board that had just burned out. "That's the third one this week." Jack wiped the sweat from his forehead, even though the construction bay was cold. They had been working for 8 months straight, and every day brought new challenges. The quantum surge drive wasn't just a new engine. It required rethinking everything they knew about shipbuilding. The sensors are picking up too many quantum pathways at once, Dr. Miller explained, examining the damaged equipment. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. Then we need better filters, Jack said, already sketching ideas on his tablet. We can't afford to miss the right pathway, but we can't let the sensors overload either. The ship itself was unlike anything humanity had built before. Instead of the usual blocky design of human vessels, Thunderchild was sleek and curved, its hull designed to ride the quantum currents like a surfboard rides an ocean wave. But progress came at a price. 2 months later, during the first power-up test of the main drive, something went wrong. The quantum field collapsed, causing a massive energy surge through the ship's systems. The explosion rocked the entire asteroid. "Everyone out!" Jack shouted as emergency alarms blared. The construction bay filled with smoke as workers rushed to evacuate. Hours later, as they assessed the damage, the mood was grim. "The Council's observers are requesting permission to inspect the facility," reported Admiral Parker through a secure channel. "They say they detected the explosion from their monitoring stations." "Tell them it was a mining accident," Dr. Miller replied. "We can't let them see Thunderchild. Not yet." The setback cost them 3 weeks of work, but it also taught them something valuable. Jack discovered that the explosion happened because they were thinking too much like traditional engineers. The quantum surge drive didn't need massive power, it needed precise control. "Look at this," he told his team, showing them new designs. "We've been trying to force our way through quantum space. Instead, we need to slip through it, like threading a needle." The redesign worked. The next tests showed promising results, and the ship's systems stabilized. As word of their progress spread, more countries offered support. Soon, the best engineers from every nation were working together in the asteroid base. The alien media continued their mockery. "Humans waste resources on impossible drive," their headlines declared. The Council's scientific committee released papers explaining why the human approach would never work, citing thousands of years of established physics. But in the darkness of the asteroid belt, Thunderchild was almost ready. Its quantum sensors were refined to detect the smallest fluctuations in spacetime. Its hull gleamed with a special coating designed to slip between quantum pathways, and at its heart, the quantum surge drive hummed with potential. "Final systems check complete," Pete announced one day, his voice filled with pride. "All green across the board." Jack stood in the observation room, looking at their creation through the reinforced windows. Thunderchild wasn't the biggest ship humanity had ever built, but it was definitely the most advanced. Every piece of it represented humanity's best work, their greatest achievement yet. "The unmanned tests begin tomorrow," Dr. Miller said, standing beside him. "Are you ready?" Jack nodded, his eyes still fixed on the ship. "You know what's funny? The Council kept telling us we were too primitive, too far behind. But they never understood something important about humans." "What's that?" Dr. Miller asked. "We do our best work when someone tells us something's impossible." As the lights dimmed in the construction bay for the night shift, Thunderchild waited silently. Tomorrow, it would either prove humanity's greatest triumph or their most spectacular failure. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating humans. The control room of Project Lightning Strike was packed with engineers, scientists, and military observers. Everyone held their breath as Thunderchild prepared for its first unmanned test flight. The ship hovered gracefully in the asteroid belt, its systems humming with power. "All systems are green," Pete announced from his station. "Quantum sensors are active and detecting pathways." Jack stood next to Dr. Miller, both staring intently at their displays. This was the moment of truth. Either their theories about quantum space were correct, or they were about to watch months of work end in failure. "Beginning test sequence," the flight controller announced. "Initial jump in 3, 2, 1. Thunderchild's quantum surge drive activated. For a split second, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in a flash of blue light, the ship vanished. The control room erupted in gasps and murmurs. "Location?" Jack asked urgently. "Checking." Pete's fingers flew across his console. "Got it. She's exactly where we aimed her, just past Mars orbit. Time of jump, my God." Dr. Miller leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "That's 500 times light speed." On the first try, the room exploded in cheers. They had just matched the speed of most civilian ships in the galaxy, and this was only their first test. But Jack wasn't celebrating. He was studying the sensor readings with intense focus. "Look at these quantum pathway readings," he said to Dr. Miller. "The ship barely used any power. We're not even close to its full potential." Over the next week, they ran more tests. Each time, Thunderchild performed flawlessly, slipping through quantum space like a fish through water. But Jack knew they could do better. "The quantum pathways aren't just passages," he explained during a late-night session. "They're more like a network. If we can jump from one pathway to another." He pulled up new calculations on his screen. Dr. Miller studied them, his eyes widening. "Jack, the energy requirements for that kind of maneuver would be enormous. Even if it works, the stress on the ship will be minimal," Jack interrupted, showing more data. "Because we're not forcing our way through space anymore, remember? We're flowing with it." The next test was scheduled despite Dr. Miller's concerns. This time, Thunderchild would attempt something never before seen in human spaceflight: a triple quantum jump, moving from one pathway to another in mid-flight. As they prepared for the test, an alert came through. Alien ships had been detected at the edge of the solar system. The Council's sending observers. Admiral Parker informed them through a secure channel. "They say they've detected unusual space-time disturbances in the asteroid belt. We have maybe 2 days before they arrive." Jack looked at Dr. Miller. "We need to run the test now." "It's risky," Dr. Miller warned. "We haven't finished all the simulations." "We don't have time," Jack insisted. "Once those observers arrive, they'll try to shut us down. We need to prove it works before then." The control room was tense as Thunderchild prepared for its most ambitious test yet. The ship's quantum sensors were recalibrated to detect multiple pathways at once, its computers ready to plot the complex course. "Beginning triple jump sequence," the flight controller announced. "First jump in 3, 2, 1. Thunderchild disappeared in a flash of blue light. Seconds later, it reappeared near Jupiter, then vanished again. The third jump took it beyond Saturn, and the final jump brought it all the way to Uranus orbit. When the final readings came in, the room went silent. The ship had achieved a sustained speed of over 800 times light speed, faster than most Council military vessels. "We did it," Pete whispered, breaking the silence. "We actually did it." But Jack was already working on new calculations. "This isn't our limit," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "The quantum network goes deeper than we thought, with a few modifications." Dr. Miller looked at his protege with a mixture of pride and concern. "How fast do you think we can go?" Jack's answer was interrupted by a new alert. The alien observers had accelerated their approach. They would arrive in less than 24 hours. The race was on. They had 1 day to push Thunderchild to its true limits before the Council arrived to stop them. The next 20 hours in Project Lightning Strike's control center were the most intense in human spaceflight history. While alien ships approached from the outer solar system, Jack and his team worked frantically to modify Thunderchild's systems. "The quantum sensors are picking up something incredible," Jack explained, showing Dr. Miller the readings. "There's a deeper layer of quantum pathways we never saw before. They're like express lanes in space." The team had just finished uploading new software to Thunderchild when their radar systems lit up with warnings. 3 Council ships had entered the asteroid belt. "This is High Inspector First Class speaking." A cold voice came through their communications. In the name of public safety, we demand you cease all experimental flight activities immediately. Admiral Parker, who had arrived hours earlier, took charge of the situation. This is a sovereign human facility conducting authorized research, he replied firmly. You have no jurisdiction here. While the Admiral kept the Council ships busy with diplomatic talk, Thunderchild's systems came online for what would be its most important test yet. All modifications are complete, Pete reported, his voice tense with excitement. This ship's ready. Jack looked at Dr. Miller. We need to do this now, before they try to stop us. Dr. Miller nodded. Begin the test sequence. Thunderchild powered up its quantum surge drive, its sensors probing deep into the quantum fabric of space. This time, they were aiming for something unprecedented. Council ships are demanding we power down our systems, the communications officer reported. Ignore them, Admiral Parker ordered. Proceed with the test. The control room held its breath as Thunderchild initiated its jump sequence. The ship vanished in a flash of brilliant blue light, brighter than any previous jump. Tracking, Pete called out. She's moving through the quantum network. Speed is climbing. 1,000 times light speed. 1,200. 1,500. The alien ship's sensors must have detected what was happening, because their demands became more urgent. Stop this reckless experiment immediately. You risk damaging the fabric of space-time. But Thunderchild wasn't just safe, it was thriving. The ship danced through quantum pathways that the Council had never even detected, using the natural flows of space-time to achieve impossible speeds. Final readings coming in, Pete announced, his voice filled with awe. Sustained speed of 1,500 times light speed. No strain on the ship's systems. She's performing perfectly. The room erupted in cheers. They had done it, created a ship that was twice as fast as anything the Galactic Council had ever built. But Jack wasn't finished. Send the data to my station, he told Pete. I need to check something. As he studied the readings, his excitement grew. Look at this, he called to Dr. Miller. The quantum pathways we used, they're part of an even larger network. With a few adjustments, we could potentially reach 2,000 times light speed. The Council ships had gone silent, presumably stunned by the sensor readings they were getting. Admiral Parker used this moment to make an announcement. Send a message to the Council, he ordered. Tell them Earth will be conducting a public demonstration of our new drive system in 1 week. Invite their top scientists and representatives to attend. Dr. Miller looked concerned. A public demonstration. Are we ready for that? Jack nodded confidently. We're ready. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do. As the control room buzzed with activity, preparing for the upcoming demonstration, the Council ships remained at a distance, silently observing. Their presence was a reminder of how far humanity had come, from being dismissed as primitives to creating something that had the most advanced civilization in the galaxy worried. You know they'll try to stop the demonstration, Dr. Miller said quietly to Jack. Let them try, Jack replied, already working on the final modifications for Thunderchild. They thought we were too primitive to join their council. Now we'll show them just how wrong they were. The next week would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Humanity was about to prove that being the youngest spacefaring race didn't make them the weakest. It made them the most innovative. The day of the demonstration arrived with more fanfare than any event in human space history. Representatives from over 200 alien species gathered in ships around the asteroid belt. The Galactic Council had sent its entire scientific advisory board, though they made it clear they were only there to prevent potential disasters. Inside Thunderchild's newly installed cockpit, Jack checked the systems one final time. This would be the first crewed flight of the quantum surge drive, and he had insisted on being aboard. All systems are showing green, he reported to Control. Dr. Miller sat in the co-pilot's seat, despite numerous protests about his age and the risks involved. I helped build this ship, the older scientist had said. I'm going to be there when she makes history. Admiral Parker's voice came through their communications. The Council observers are in position. Their sensors are focused on Thunderchild. Are you ready? Jack looked at Dr. Miller, who nodded. We're ready. Beginning demonstration sequence. The Council had set up a course through the solar system, marked by sensor buoys. Their ships hovered nearby, their own instruments ready to record everything. The alien observers had been dismissive during the pre-flight briefing, treating the whole thing like a child's science experiment. Remember, Dr. Miller said quietly, they're expecting us to fail. They're so sure their weight is the only way that they can't imagine we've actually done it. Jack smiled as he powered up the quantum surge drive. Then let's change their minds. Thunderchild lifted smoothly from its dock, its hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. The quantum sensors came online, mapping the invisible pathways that crisscrossed space. Beginning first jump sequence, Jack announced. Standard speed demonstration. The ship disappeared in its signature flash of blue light, reappearing instantly at the first marker near Mars. The alien observers murmured. This was already faster than they had expected. Second jump, Jack called out. Increasing speed. Thunderchild vanished again, this time emerging near Jupiter. The Council ship's sensors were going crazy, trying to understand how the human vessel was moving so efficiently through space. Preparing for maximum speed demonstration, Jack said, his hands steady on the controls. Dr. Miller, how are the quantum pathway readings? Perfect, the older scientist replied, studying his displays. The deeper networks are stable and ready. What happened next would be talked about in the galaxy for centuries to come. Thunderchild didn't just jump, it danced. The ship moved through quantum space with impossible grace, each jump faster than the last. It reached Saturn, then Uranus, then Neptune in seconds. The Council ships were broadcasting frantically now, demanding they stop the demonstration. But their words cut off as their sensors detected Thunderchild's final achievement. Maximum speed reached, Jack announced calmly. 2,000 times light speed, sustained and stable. The silence that followed was deafening. Every alien sensor confirmed the impossible. A human ship had just traveled faster than anything in known space. The quantum surge drive hadn't just matched Council technology. It had left it in the dust. Dr. Miller watched the readings with tears in his eyes. Perfect, he whispered. Absolutely perfect. When Thunderchild returned to the asteroid base, the Council ships remained frozen in place, their observers struck speechless. The human ship's performance hadn't just surprised them. It had shattered their entire understanding of space travel. As Jack and Dr. Miller stepped out of the ship, they were met by thunderous applause from the human crew. Admiral Parker approached them, holding a communication device. The Council's Grand Speaker is requesting an immediate conference, he said, trying to hide his smile. They seem very interested in discussing Earth's membership application again. Jack looked up at Thunderchild, its hull still humming with power from its historic flight. Tell them we'll be happy to attend the meeting, he replied. And we'll get there faster than they will. In the observation deck above, alien observers huddled around their instruments, still trying to understand how they had been so wrong about humanity. They had called humans primitive, dismissed their ideas, and mocked their efforts. Now, they would have to accept a new reality. Humanity wasn't just ready to join the galactic community. They were ready to lead it. 1 month after Thunderchild's historic flight, Earth's representatives stood once again in the Galactic Council's central chamber. This time, there were no mocking whispers, no condescending looks. Instead, the alien delegates watched the humans with newfound respect, and more than a little nervousness. The Grand Speaker's platform seemed to hover lower than usual as the silver-skinned being addressed the chamber. In light of recent developments, the Council has reconvened to discuss Earth's membership application. Jack and Dr. Miller sat in the front row beside Admiral Parker. Behind them, the chamber was packed with representatives from every spacefaring race in the galaxy. Many of them had already approached Earth with offers of trade deals and technological exchanges. Earth has demonstrated not only technological achievement, the Grand Speaker continued, but also an innovative approach to space travel that the Council failed to consider. The admission seemed to pain the ancient being. A blue-skinned council member, the same one who had mocked Earth's primitive ships during their last rejection, stood up. We must acknowledge that our assessment of human capabilities was incorrect. Their quantum surge drive represents a leap forward in space travel technology. Admiral Parker stepped forward to address the Council. Earth appreciates the Council's reconsideration. However, we're not just here to join. We're here to contribute. Jack was called to the speaker's platform. Standing before the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds, he activated a holographic display showing Thunderchild's quantum pathway navigation system. The quantum surge drive isn't just about speed, he explained. It's about understanding space in a new way. We've already begun adapting the technology for smaller ships, and we're willing to share this knowledge. The chamber erupted in excited murmurs. Dr. Miller smiled proudly from his seat. In just a few months, they had gone from being dismissed as primitives to becoming the most sought-after teachers in the galaxy. The Council's vote was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership, with special recognition for their contributions to space travel technology. But more than that, they were given a seat on the Scientific Advisory Board, the youngest species ever to receive such an honor. As the chamber cleared, alien delegates rushed to speak with the human representatives. Many offered congratulations, while others eagerly requested technical assistance with implementing quantum surge technology in their own ships. You know what the best part is? Dr. Miller said to Jack as they watched the scene. They're not just copying our design. They're learning to think differently. Some of their younger scientists are already coming up with new applications we hadn't considered. Jack nodded. That's exactly what we wanted, not just to prove them wrong, but to show them there's always more to discover. Admiral Parker joined them, holding a data pad filled with cooperation requests from various alien worlds. The Council's shipyards are being converted to build quantum surge drives. They're saying it'll revolutionize everything from trade to exploration. And to think, Jack said with a smile, just a few months ago, they said it was impossible. As they prepared to return to Earth in Thunderchild, now the most famous ship in the galaxy, Dr. Miller took one last look at the Council chamber. You know what this really proves? He asked. It's not just about the technology. It's about perspective. Sometimes, the youngest eyes see things the oldest minds have forgotten to look for. Later that day, as Thunderchild effortlessly slipped through quantum space on its way home, news spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity had changed the rules of space travel forever. Ships that once took weeks to reach distant systems could now arrive in days. Trade routes were being redrawn, exploration missions replanned. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating its younger members. As one alien scientist put it in a report, humans remind us that primitive is not the opposite of innovative. Sometimes, being new to the stars means seeing them with fresh eyes. Thunderchild's quantum surge drive became the standard for space travel, and Earth became a center for scientific innovation. But they never forgot the most important lesson of their journey. The greatest discoveries come not from following established paths, but from daring to find new ones.